Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you had a great night last night. I did not. Arkansas blowing a big lead. Don't worry, we'll talk about it. We'll also mainly talk Purdue playing Houston tonight in their Sweet 16 matchup. Zach Pereles of CBS Sports is set to join the show here in about 20 minutes, where we will talk Houston-Purdue. We'll talk about the games last night. Zack Gray, he's going to join the show again today at 11:40 to give you more bets and probably poke a lot of fun at me for that Arkansas game last night. But that's okay. It's all right. It's part of it. It's just a game. My boss felt the need to come in here and tell me that this morning, and I was just trying so hard not to laugh because it's just like, geez, man. Like, has your team ever blown a 16-point lead in the Sweet 16? Anyway, Purdue plays Houston tonight. It's at 10 o'clock. They're an 8.5-point underdog. I'm not picking them to win. Not picking them to cover. I'd love to be wrong. I really, really would, but I don't think I will be. Purdue just isn't good enough. That's just the very simple reality of it. Now, maybe they have an Alabama experience from last night where they hit 25 threes. But if that hadn't happened, then good luck. Good luck beating this Houston team, because Purdue's just not good enough on the defensive end of the floor, and they don't have enough offense. Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn aren't enough to beat Houston. They have to get more production from their other guys. And to their credit, they've gotten that so far in the tournament. Then again, you beat 12th seeded McNeese State and you beat 13th seeded High Point. So, it's just a little step up in competition from, playing against Houston now. Fletcher Lawyer has to be much better than he was against McNeese State. If Fletcher Lawyer shoots 4 of 12 from the field and 3 of 10 from 3 again, Purdue will not win this game. It will not happen. Unless maybe, just maybe, CJ Cox has, just a bonkers game, or Jakari Harris or Miles Colvin go crazy. It's not going to happen, though, because those players just don't get to shoot the ball enough to make up for a bad shooting night from Fletcher Lawyer or Braden Smith or Trey Kaufman-Renn. Purdue needs their 3 best players to be great. That's what they need. Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, and Trey Kaufman-Renn. 3 guys that have played in big games before. 3 guys who played in a Final Four and a national championship game last year. They have to be great. They do. Especially Fletcher Lawyer and Trey Kaufman-Renn, because Houston is going to make things tough on Braden Smith. They are. Now, Houston is not an overwhelmingly large team. All the guys that play, they go no taller than 6'8". They're thick, but they go no taller than 6'8". Here's the thing, though. Their guards are still big. Their guards are big dudes. They've got one guard, an LJ Cryer, who's 6'1". Every other guard, 6'3" and up. Houston is going to be able to put size and length on Braden Smith. That's what McNeese State did. And look, I think it's going to lead to a pretty similar result. Braden Smith only took 7 shots against McNeese State. I think he's going to struggle to get open looks tonight, because Houston's opponents from the Big 12 tournament up until now, they're only shooting 39% from the field. They are going to make things tough on Braden Smith. I think they're going to do a really good job of forcing Braden Smith to give the basketball up. And when that happens, a bunch of shots begin to kind of spread out to everybody else. And that's what we saw in that McNeese State game. Fletcher Lawyer took 12 shots, 10 threes, because Braden Smith only took 7 shots total. And Fletcher Lawyer tonight is going to get good looks because of the attention applied to Braden Smith and Trey Coffin-Wren. And Fletcher Lawyer has to hit those shots. He has to be that pressure release valve for the Purdue offense tonight. When he's open, because Houston overcommits to Trey Coffin-Wren or Braden Smith, those shots he has to make. He didn't do that against McNeese State, and that's fine because it's McNeese State. You can afford to miss shots if you're Purdue against them. Against Houston, though, you absolutely cannot afford to miss open looks. Hopefully tonight, for Fletcher Lawyer, we see water find its level. I hope Fletcher Lawyer hits every three that he takes. I hope he has a Mark Sears-like experience because Purdue's going to need every shot that he can give them because Houston, as everyone knows, is this incredibly tough defensive team. That's their identity. It's been their identity since Kelvin Sampson showed up. Once again, since the start of the Big 12 tournament, their opponents are only shooting 39% from the floor. Crazy. But offensively, they're pretty great too. They're shooting 40% from three on the season and 40% from three since the start of the Big 12 tournament. They are making three-point shots at a higher rate since the start of the Big 12 tournament than their opponents are making normal shots, like layups. Like, it's incredible. Just the defense that this team plays, number one ranked defense in the country for a reason. But don't let that distract you from the fact that they're also a top 10 offense in the country. They've got 4 players averaging double digits. LJ Cryer, that's their lead guy. He can absolutely fill it up. If you have time, go watch highlights from that game against Gonzaga. You're going to see a lot of LJ Cryer making a lot of tough shots. Okay? That dude can flat out shoot the rock. He's shooting 43% from three. Houston has a team on the season, 40% from three. Purdue has to hit open shots. Not just because they aren't going to get very many open shots, but also because Houston is going to score it really well. That's just the reality of it. Okay, Houston's going to swarm Trey Coffin-Wren and Braden Smith, and Fletcher Lawyer and these other guys have to hit open shots because they're going to get them. They are. You can't take everything away from a team in terms of like how you defend them. So if you're playing against Purdue, chances are you're probably going to try to take away Braden Smith and Trey Coffin-Wren and make other guys hit shots. That is the way to beat Purdue. And Houston has the dudes to do that. So those other guys, Jakari Harris, CJ Cox, Miles Colvin, like they have to hit shots. If CJ Cox can have a stretch like he did against Alabama at the start of the year where he hits 3 threes in a row, that would be huge for Purdue tonight. Be huge for them. Okay, so they have to hit open shots. The other thing that they have to do, Purdue, to win this game tonight, they have to defend the perimeter at an incredibly high level. Houston shot 50% from three against Gonzaga. They shot 36% from three against SIUE. They can light it up. Their offense, it's all about their guards, which makes me concerned because Braden Smith, smart defender, tough dude, but, not a great defender. Fletcher Lawyer, smart guy, not a very good defender. CJ Cox, good defender, but young. I'm still nervous about him sometimes. So the perimeter defense has to be excellent from Purdue, and the ability to hit shots from the outside has to be there. Now, the good news for Purdue, when you look at this matchup against Houston, Houston isn't very big. And Purdue has struggled against teams with size throughout the year. And when you look at the Houston roster, they don't have very much of it. They've got one guy on their roster. He's 6'11". He's yet to make an appearance in a game at all this year. Houston's second tallest player, he's 6'9". He's only played in 13 games this year. Okay? Like, sure, they have some guys that are kind of large, but they don't play. Everyone that plays real minutes for Houston is 6'8" and shorter. That is great. That's such good news for Purdue because we all know about the lack of size that Purdue has. Okay? They are going to be the bigger team. We haven't said that. We've now said that 3 games in a row. Actually, that's not true. They were smaller than High Point. We've now said that 2 games in a row. I don't think during Big Ten play that you could have said that back-to-back games for Purdue, that they were the bigger team. And that's great for them. That means, to me, life should be a little bit easier on Trey Kaufman-Renn. Because I just think that finishing over a guy that's 6'8", 235 pounds is easier than finishing over a 7-footer that's, 250 pounds. So I think Trey Kaufman-Renn has his way tonight, which is just, what a take, Jonathan. You mean the guy that, has been one of the 5 best power forwards in the country is going to play really well? Really? Yeah, that's what I think. I know. I also think Caleb First, I don't know how much he's going to play because Houston's very athletic. I think we're going to see a lot of Camden Heide because he is 6'7", and you can get away with playing him at the power forward spot against Houston. Caleb First, the minutes that he does get, that dude has to rebound like a man that's possessed. Okay, like you have to do those things against this Houston team because getting good shots is going to be hard. So you need as many of them as possible. And if Caleb First is in there and he's rebounding the ball on both ends of the floor, then that would be a huge lift for Purdue. All of the role players, Caleb First has to rebound. All of the role players have to find a way to be impactful within their role. CJ Cox is a guy who plays because he's an excellent defender. Excellent's probably a bit much because he's a good defender. And when he's open, he can knock down shots. I think he's got a little more wiggle, a little bit more to his scoring bag, as the kids say, than he lets on just because he doesn't have the ball enough to really do it. But he has to hit shots tonight. And he has to continue to play great defense. I'm assuming they're going to put him on LJ Cryer, which makes me nervous because CJ Cox is a freshman. Miles Colvin and Jakari Harris, they have to come in off the bench and provide energy, especially on the defensive end. Miles Colvin probably going to get some time on LJ Cryer tonight because Miles Colvin is a very good athlete who can defend. So they have, Harris and Colvin got to defend, have to hit open shots. Camden Heide, who, if he played 30 minutes tonight, wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. He's got to hit open shots, which he's been doing since the start of the Big Ten tournament, and he's got to rebound. That's why he started playing in the Big Ten tournament. He was just a maniac getting up there on the glass. Okay, if Camden Heide plays well tonight, I actually kind of like Purdue's chances to cover. Not to win, but to cover. Ultimately, though, this game, it's going to be about guards. I think so much of Houston and Purdue, what they want to do is dictated by their point guard. LJ Cryer's going to have the ball a lot tonight. Braden Smith's going to have the ball a lot tonight. Neither team is big. Sure, Trey Kaufman-Renn can score it on the block. Houston doesn't really have anybody like that. So much of this game is going to be about the guards. And this is where, if you're a Purdue fan, you have to feel good. You do, because you have Braden Smith. You have the best point guard in the country. A guy who was a finalist to be the National Player of the Year. Top 4 in voting. That's crazy. That means at worst, you have the 4th best player in all of college basketball. And in a game that's going to be about the guards, when you have a dude like Braden Smith, it's hard to not feel at least optimistic about what could happen. And look, it just as, a guy who watches all of these games, there are a lot of parts about the Houston defense that makes me worried about Braden Smith. How does he handle the aggressiveness of Houston? How does he handle the physicality? How does he handle being smaller than all of them except for LJ Cryer? How does he deal with that? I have a lot of questions, as you can tell. But at the same time, it is incredibly hard to bet against Braden Smith because you just know he's going to show up. You know he's going to be laser focused. You know he's going to play his balls off. He's going to play so freaking hard. And you know he's going to make the right play. And you know that when Purdue needs to force a turnover, you know he's probably going to be the one to come up with the steal. You know that when Purdue needs a good look at the basket, he's going to figure out a way to make sure that they get a good look. So I like Houston to win by double digits. I think that they're just going to overwhelm Purdue. I don't think Purdue has enough outside of Braden Smith and Trey Coughlin-Wren to win the game. But there is a path for Purdue to win because they shoot the ball well, and they're going to have definitely the best player in the game in Braden Smith, and maybe the two best players in the game, depending on how Houston's LJ Cryer plays. So I'm excited for the game tonight. I hope it's fun. I'm going to stay up for it as I always do. It's going to be great. Zach Pereles of CBS Sports, he's going to join the show coming up here in about 4 minutes or so, and we're going to discuss the game tonight. We'll be right back with Zach Pereles.
favorites in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you've had a nice week. Purdue playing Houston tonight. Zach Pereles of CBS Sports joins to discuss that game and the other Sweet 16 games going on. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. I am coming off not a ton of sleep after last night's games, but can't wait to watch 4 more tonight.
Man, I'm excited for tonight's games as well. I, too, am coming off not very much sleep, as I told you off the air, Zach. Like, the Arkansas game ended, and I want to talk about Houston and Purdue, but I do think this shows how ridiculous I am. That game ended. It's the Eastern time zone here, so it's like 1 a.m. Zach, I didn't go to bed till like 4. Like, I just like couldn't sleep. I was so distraught after that loss. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I think it probably has. I think, especially in the tournament, you just get these teams that blow these leads, and it's just like you're replaying every single moment in your head. This one decision, this one. It's the beauty and the agony of the tournament.
It is the beauty and the agony. That is the perfect way to put it. And I would argue that Purdue's going to have a lot of agony tonight. Houston's really good. Purdue's had a pretty amazing run when you just think about how they really only have 2 guys on their team who can score. What do you expect tonight from Purdue and Houston?
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about Purdue. I think that when you look at what Houston does well all the time, it's defend and offensive rebound. But what they do well this year is they also are the best 3-point shooting team in the country, which is just absurd, just like a ridiculous combination of things. I'm worried about Purdue just because Houston's gonna shoot the ball well, and even when it doesn't, even when it has those stretches, when it misses a couple, they do such a good job going after the offensive rebounds, which Purdue, you could have countered last year with Zach Edey, but this year they're not quite as good on the boards, and they're certainly not as good protecting the rim. They're one of the worst block percentage teams in the country. So Trey Kaufman-Renn, really good. Obviously a terrific player, but he's not that just like dominant, like both ends inside force that just cleans the boards, protects the rim like Zach Edey was. And Houston just, it's so hard to play a team that shoots it so well and gets so many extra chances.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports. He covers the NFL and college basketball and so much more over at CBSSports.com. He has just this amazing newsletter that you should definitely go check out as well. Yeah, I'm with you. Houston's, it's really weird because like they aren't very big. Like they play a few guys that are 6'8". Everyone else is shorter. Why do they do such a good job of offensive rebounding when they're smaller than a lot of the teams that they play in terms of height? Because I know that like their guys are pretty thick.
Yeah, Houston does such a good job of getting guys who are just like grown men. Like they get JUCO transfers, they get these tough-nosed transfers that have kind of just made a name for themselves. Like this is who they are, this is their identity. And they get guys who just fit them. Like, you never see a Houston big man who doesn't offensive rebound. It's like that's a prerequisite just to be on the team. So I think you have to credit Kelvin Sampson for really knowing exactly what he wants. And you're right, they're not that big, but they're really strong. They're always experienced. It's like, here's this guy in his first year at Houston, but he played 2 years somewhere else where he dominated the offensive glass. They just do a really good job, obviously, of coaching, but you have to have the guys who are willing to do it. And it's clear that Kelvin Sampson is happy to say, go to the offensive glass. Our guards will be, really well-disciplined playing transition defense. So that gives you some freedom to attack the offensive glass. And then they're relentless. They're really good individual players. They're long, they're tough. They're not always the tallest, but they are just like really, really physical. And it's exhausting to have to play against those guys. You know, when you can't assume that a single rebound is coming to you and you're going to have to work for every single one, that is exhausting mentally and physically.
What's the path for Purdue to win tonight?
Yeah, they're going to have to shoot the daylight out of the ball. I think that's a really big one, and they have shot it really, really well. And then they're going to have to hope for some misses. You know, I hate to bring up Arkansas last night, but like there were so many open misses from a really good shooting Texas Tech team for a long time. Purdue's going to have to hope for that. And then I will say the one thing that should give Purdue a little bit more hope maybe is that Braden Smith can just, like, if he can just control this game, and like they're going to have to hit a lot of shots, but they're also going to have to avoid turning the ball over, and they're going to have to like operate at such a high level offensively because Houston is going to make a lot of shots. And Houston is going to make a lot of shots because they're going to get a lot of shots. So Purdue's going to have to be extremely efficient. They can't waste possessions. And Braden Smith is a guy who doesn't waste a lot of possessions.
He doesn't. The lack of – I don't like saying size for Houston because, as you mentioned, like they got grown men over there. Let's call it the lack of height. That makes me feel pretty good about Trey Coffin-Wren having a good scoring night. My concern is really a lot of what you said, the turnovers. Because even though, you know, Houston isn't huge, they still have big guards. Like LJ Cryer's a little smaller, but all the other guys are like 6'3", 6'4", and we've seen Braden Smith struggle going up against bigger, longer, more athletic guards in the past. Who's the role player for Purdue that really has to step up? Because for me, like, as concerned as I am about Braden Smith and his ability to kind of play against bigger players, like the dude's the best point guard in the country. Like, I really shouldn't be that concerned. I feel pretty good about Kaufman-Wren, but that's not enough to beat this Houston team. Which role player are you looking at to potentially have a really big impact on the game?
Yeah, so I think outside kind of those big three guys with Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Wren, and probably Fletcher Lawyer, I think that I probably got to give him more credit than just a role player. He's really good, just been there for a while and has had some big games. How about let's go with Caleb first? Like, you're going to get just a ton of battles down low. You're going to need a ton of rebounds from him. This could be one of these games where if he plays and he has, you know, he plays about 20-ish minutes, maybe a little bit less than that. I think he's going to be more than that because they're going to need him on the glass. If he can give you 6 or 8 rebounds, and even if it's not a ton of scoring, because he hasn't done that really this year, I think that if he gives you some presence on the glass, like sometimes it's not what you're so good at, it's what you're not horrible at. And if Purdue can avoid getting really beat up on the boards, if it can just be okay on the boards, that's a big step in pulling off an upset.
I completely agree with you. You know, the Caleb first thing is going to be interesting. Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports talking Purdue and Houston, because I think that if they can get away with Camden Heide playing, because, you know, he's 6'7", he has games where he'll pull in like 12 boards and he can really shoot it. Like my concern with Caleb first is he can't really score. So, and you know, as you said, like against this Houston team, you need every bucket that you can get. So I'm intrigued to kind of see how they split the minutes between those two guys.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Caleb first is almost like he's almost basically like a Houston big man. Like what he does is he comes in and rebounds. He doesn't score a lot. So yeah, I'm going to be interested to see, you know, can they sneak in? We're talking about, you know, the number of possessions that Houston gains with its offensive rebounding. Can Caleb first sneak and get a couple extra looks for Purdue? So it's almost like you're matching Purdue's big men with Caleb first. And yeah, I think that he could. It's not going to be a huge difference in the box score probably, but it could be here was 2 extra possessions here. Here were 2 defensive rebounds he really fought for, and here was 1 or 2 dunks that he made.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. What about the other games tonight? Like for me, I'm intrigued by Ole Miss and Michigan State. Which one of the other 3 games are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, I have been a big believer in Ole Miss for a while, and I know that they were a popular upset pick with North Carolina coming in. They took care of them. Then they really just demolished Iowa State. That is a super duper skilled team. I'm really interested in Kentucky, Tennessee. Like, I think that obviously the SEC aspect, the fact that Kentucky swept Tennessee this year, which is really impressive and really hard to do. Kentucky shot the lights out in those games against a really good Tennessee defense, and Tennessee could not make anything. So I'm really, really interested in that game. Chaz Lanier is the guy that really struggled in the 2 games against Kentucky. I think that he's going to have a really good game tonight. And I'd be really surprised if you see Tennessee lose 3 games to the same team. But Kentucky has looked really good in this tournament. Lamont Butler is doing exactly what you want from a guy who has the March Madness pedigree going back to the San Diego State days. They are incredibly talented. They're playing as well as any non-1 seed, I would say, in the tournament. So that's the one that I'm probably looking forward to the most. But you really can't go wrong with any of them. It's a great, great time. And I know people have talked about the lack of kind of a Cinderella. But on the flip side of that, when you don't have one of those Cinderellas, you're usually treated to some really, really good games later on with teams that all have legitimate title aspirations. You look up and down the slate tonight, you see teams that could win the title, teams that have beaten teams that could win the title. So it's really, really good. You can't go wrong tonight.
You really can't. Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports talking about the Sweet 16. I'm with you on Ole Miss. You know, the people picking the North Carolina to beat them was just really absurd to me. It's like, oh, we saw North Carolina play 1 good game against a halfway decent team, and now we think that they're going to beat Ole Miss. And I think part of why I like them so much is I do like Chris Beard. I know he's had some issues off the court, but I think that guy's one of the best coaches in all of basketball, and I don't think that he gets talked about that way.
Yeah, he's terrific. And this team, when I think of things that I want when I'm picking a team in the NCAA tournament, they have all of it. Really experienced guards, tons of scoring, skilled big men. And it always comes down to, I always want to know, does this team maximize its possession? Ole Miss is one of the best turnover teams in the country on both ends. So it's really easy to like them a lot. They're going to have to do a great job in transition against Michigan State, which also has a ton of guards. It's going to be a really, really good game. I'm looking forward to that one.
Me too. Last thing on the games tonight, Michigan's playing Auburn, and Auburn had a bad first half against Alabama State, but I think since then they've looked really good. Like that Creighton game, I thought they were awesome, and that's with Chad Baker-Mazara getting hurt and not finishing that game. Janai Broome scores 8 points, and they win that game by 12. I don't think people, which is really weird because they're the number 1 overall seed, so I feel very weird saying this. I don't think people realize how well Auburn is playing right now. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that you're spot on there. And the reason is that Tahad Pettiford has been awesome. And I think I just said, I really trust experienced guards in March. But when you're surrounded by so much experience, it's okay to have a freshman or 2 in there. And I just love the way that he plays. He is absolutely fearless. He could be having a rough half and then just explode in the second half. I really do agree with you. I think that this team, they're so versatile. And we talk about versatility in a bunch of ways. I think that the thing that Auburn is so versatile at is that they can play any lineup they want. Like, maybe not all the guys' skill sets are so versatile, but they can make it fit so well because Janai Broom is your leading assist guy. Like, that's like having a post point guard. So they really do such a good job. One of their guards is going to score. And then obviously, as you mentioned, like, doing it without Chad Baker-Mazara, they just, not a ton from Janai Broom, just really, really, really good team. They're deep, they're experienced, they can beat you in a bunch of ways. And I think people were maybe a little bit, misguided when Auburn lost, a few games down the stretch. Like, you're playing in the SEC. That's like losing to, 3 Elite Eight teams. So
Yeah.
It's almost like they've gotten, the competition so far has almost been easier for them in the NCAA tournament, and maybe will continue to be.
It might be. Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports talking about the Sweet 16. What were your thoughts on the games last night? You can start with whichever one you want.
Yeah, I mean, it was really like every game, they weren't all super close, but every game like had really interesting moments, and you saw the different strengths of the winners. I think that I have to start though with Duke. Like, that is an offensive machine. I just cannot get over how good Duke is and how like perfectly well built this roster is. Cooper Flagg, like, can we talk about a guy who put up a stat line we've never seen before? I think it was 30 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 blocks. Like, that doesn't happen in the NCAA tournament. It had never happened in the NCAA tournament. So just like, they are an absolute machine. They get such good looks and they make them from 3. And then like they are just so good. And you saw last night, like, Arizona, Caleb Love had 35 points. He was doing his best to give Duke another heartbreak, and I'm sure Duke fans are happy to see his college career end. But just like every single time they had an answer, and it wasn't always just like an answer of hitting a big shot. They shot their free throws well. They're an outstanding free throw shooting team. Like, just, I cannot be more impressed by what Duke has done just so far in this tournament, and especially last night. They've beaten, obviously, easy first-round win. Baylor hung with them for 10 minutes, and then they just had no shot. And then Arizona, every time Arizona tried to make a run, they had they got it to, I think, a 2-possession game, and Duke just kept them at arm's length. That is so, so impressive from what we think of as a young team, but these guys have really grown up.
Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports talking about the Sweet 16 games from last night. You're right. Yeah, like the Duke youth thing, and you're right. They were awesome last night. Cooper Flagg's that dude's just a stud. I mean, there's no other way to really put it. And the offense, like you said, it's just this machine. I love their defense. Like, I know they gave up 93, but I couldn't imagine being, like a 6'2" point guard, bringing the ball up the floor, and then you just look at Duke, and it's like, oh, they're all 6'6". They've got like a 6'10" freak, and then a 7'2" guy. I love their size, but they're just they are the best team. Like, that was my takeaway from last night. I'm like, you know what? This is the best team, and I feel pretty good that I picked them in my bracket,
Yeah, I'm starting to feel a little bit worse about not picking them, but they are excellent. And I think one thing that you can always judge a team on, people talk about pace a lot and how fast they play. And I heard last night on the broadcast that Duke doesn't play that fast. The reason that Duke doesn't play that fast is because they have the second longest defensive possessions. You want to know why that is? Because opponents can't get good shots. They're desperately searching for shots. They're having to work for all of the shot clock. And I think that that's kind of what drags Duke down a little. Their offense is just about 100th in, possession length. So that's really one thing that I've noticed is people say, oh, Duke doesn't play as fast as past teams. It's because they're so good defensively and they force teams to, get stuck in the mud. And then when they get transition opportunities, They're absolutely lethal. Even in the half court, they're lethal. So the offense is just humming in every way. And the defense, like, it is so, so hard to score on them. Like you mentioned, they have so much length. And it's really helpful when your best player is also arguably your best defender. Like,
Yeah,
they're just a machine.
Is the Duke transition offense as lethal as Mark Sears was last night?
Oh, gosh, I don't think anything is, except for the one guy from Loyola Marymount. I think the only one who had more threes than he did back in the 90s. God, that is why I can never quit Alabama, because they just play in a way that makes sense. And I know that people are frustrated by, the surge in three-pointers across the sport, and especially in the NBA. But then you watch a game like last night, and that is the difference. The fact that Alabama shoots a ton of threes, a ton of twos at the rim, and a ton of free throws. They scored 75 points from three. They scored 93 points from three in the free throw line. Like, those numbers are absurd. And if you're hitting them, you have a chance. It's a simple math problem. Nate Oates, of course, is a former math teacher. Yeah, Mark Sears, like, the guy just knows how to step up and march. They are, at some point, like, you have to just admit that Alabama is a national title contender no matter the losses, because if they shoot well enough from three, that's all that matters. I don't think that they're going to be able to do it against Duke, but who knows? Like, if you're making logo threes on a consistent basis, there's really no defense for that.
There's not. Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports, talking about the NCAA tournament. Yeah, watching that game last night, Zach, I was like, I don't get frustrated watching games very often, but I'm watching BYU, and I'm like, are you going to go under every ball screen? Are you ever going to go over the top of one? That was the most mind-boggling coaching decision of any of the ones that I saw last night. And we saw Arkansas not foul up three late.
Yeah, no, it was, it is who they were all season. And I think that they were worried that getting away from who they were after a really, really successful season was going to be tough. But you're right. Like, you can say, all right, we're going to let you shoot threes over us, and if you make them, you make them. You can say that for 350 teams in the nation. Alabama's not one of them. And I think that we kind of saw this story. I think that this is kind of what led me to really believe in Alabama last night. Alabama just absolutely destroyed Kentucky twice. And you know who Kentucky's coach, Mark Pope, coached the year before? TCU. So a lot of the same personnel. Obviously, it's not the same coach anymore, but they play similar styles. And Alabama destroyed that in the regular season. So there was really no reason for me to be worried about them not destroying BYU. I think that this was, if BYU's comparison is Kentucky, well, you look at what Alabama did to Kentucky, and they did it to BYU.
They did. They just, man, they lit it up, man. It's just that game was just wild. Joined by Zach Pereles. I don't think we need to talk about the Florida game much. My takeaway was, once Florida didn't turn the ball over 13 times in the second half like they did in the first half, they pulled away. Was that kind of your takeaway?
Yes. If your possessions ended in shots, if you were Florida, you were probably in a good spot, because you're either going to make them or you're going to get the offensive rebound, as long as you held onto the ball. And my God, were there some ugly turnovers. But after that, once they got it figured out, it was Florida at its best.
It was. They look really good. I just had someone in our YouTube chat, Indie Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe, ask if Tech can beat Florida. They can. I don't think they will, though.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, Chance McMillian coming back might give Texas Tech a better chance. It's just, at the end of the day, I just am not 100% sold on the Texas Tech defense. And then, Florida will beat you up on the boards. And if you miss, that was the thing that I think was maybe a little bit under the radar last night was how poorly Texas Tech shot on open shots. If they miss those shots again, Florida will kill you in transition and they will dominate you on the offensive glass. But, Texas Tech, like another team that shoots a ton of threes, maybe tomorrow night is their Alabama of last night.
Maybe, because last night was definitely not their Alabama night.
No.
It was late. It's just the most frustrating thing about that game for me, Zach, is if Arkansas just rebounds, because that was the difference for me. Like that, and speaking of the Alabama game, it felt like every shot Alabama missed, they got the offensive rebound and they kicked out to an open shooter and they made the shot. Last night, when Texas Tech made that run late and ended up taking the lead, yes, they hit shots obviously and they got stops, but it felt like they grabbed every offensive rebound as well.
Yeah. And you're just noticing, like, I think how important the possession numbers are. And I think that that's a big thing that I've just come to realize over the course of being a basketball fan is it's not always how many points you score, but how many points you score per possession. So if you miss a shot, get an offensive rebound, and then make a three on a kick out, that's 3 points over 2 possessions. That's pretty darn good. That's basically like shooting 50% for three a whole game, even though it doesn't really feel like that. So the extra possessions, it's just, again, a math problem. If you get more possessions, you can, shoot a little bit worse, but if you're getting more shots up, then you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports. Are you, so I turned on the TV today and I was listening to, CBS Sports Radio on my way into work, and everyone's blaming Coach Cal. Do you blame this loss on Coach Cal? I don't. I don't think Coach Cal was the one who didn't rebound very well down the stretch, but I kind of get it. Where do you, like, if you had to do blame pie, how much of this is on Coach Cal?
Yeah, I always feel like coaches don't get enough credit when they win, and they get way too much blame when they lose. Having said that, the biggest thing for me, I'm a proponent of fouling up 3, but I understand like there was more time left than people realize, and I understand kind of the apprehension there. So I was, going back and thinking about it, I'd probably personally foul, but I'm not a basketball genius. I'm just a guy who watches and loves the sport. The bigger issue for me was not calling a timeout late in overtime. Like that's got to be, especially because, people think, and you saw this a lot with Arkansas, the way that they call their timeouts is they get right over half court and take the timeout, which is what most college teams do. I think, there were probably still 2 or 3 seconds left when it was clear that this possession wasn't going anywhere, and the dribbling was all over the place. And at that point, I would have loved to see, can you call a timeout and call up a play, even with 2 or 3 seconds left. It just kind of felt like everyone froze on that last possession. And when they needed someone to kind of get them right, Coach Cal didn't make the call for a timeout. So if you want to blame him for that one possession, sure. But if you have to look back at the whole thing, and people love to overreact to what just happened because that's how the season ended. But overall, like the past week, what a job from Coach Calipari. Like he did such a good job over the first weekend and really getting this team back after a really tough start to SEC play. I think 0-5. So to get to the Sweet 16 after that, it's one of these things where he did such a good coaching job all year, and for it to end on this one possession, unfortunately, kind of stains all of that good work.
Yep, you're exactly right. Zach, I am way over on time. Thanks for your time, as always, man. You were great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You got it. That is Zach Pereles. You can check him out on Twitter at Zach_Pereles. He writes a great letter for CBS Sports. You should go check that out. When we come back here in a few minutes, we'll keep talking about the Sweet 16.
may one day be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Went a little long there with Zach Pereles, so I have to hit another break. We'll be right back here in a few minutes. More thoughts on Purdue and Houston. There is a little bit of hope for Purdue. I'm going to tell you what that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune in. Whether you're watching on Twitter, _ Jonathan Smith, maybe you're watching on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. If you want more from me, you can check out my other YouTube thing. My Take is where I just, I give out more takes than I already do because it's fun and I like giving takes. Tonight, basketball continues, the Sweet 16, and we're going to do the theme thing again. Game themes, we talked about them last night or yesterday. I've got more themes for today's game. Ole Miss, they're playing Michigan State at 7 o'clock. First game of the night, Lucas Oil Stadium. This, to me, this is the best coach's game. In terms of like coach versus coach matchup, this is the best one. I have a tremendous amount of respect for both of these coaches. I think for the games tonight, these are the two best coaches. Tom Izzo needs no introduction. He's 6th all time in NCAA tournament wins. If he wins tonight, he'll be tied for 5th with John Calipari. He's won a national championship, been to 8 Final Fours. Pretty crazy. Okay? But once again, Tom Izzo needs no introduction. Chris Beard shouldn't, but for some reason, I feel like he does. Chris Beard took Texas Tech to a national championship not that long ago. He's won everywhere he's been. He won at UALR, the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. Purdue fans know that. He won at Texas Tech. He won at Texas before things went sideways. Now he's winning at Ole Miss. The older coaches in the country still get a lot of credit as being the best coaches in the sport. And it makes sense because they've won a lot. But Chris Beard belongs in that group of the best coaches in the sport. I can't wait to watch this game. Both of these teams defend their butts off. But I like Ole Miss. Just because they shoot it better. The lack of shooting for Michigan State has to matter at some point. It has to matter at some point. So I like Ole Miss tonight. Can't wait to watch that game. I think that they just shoot the ball a little bit better than Michigan State does, and that ends up being the difference in the game. Kentucky, they play Tennessee at 7:30. That game is in Indianapolis. I'm sorry, not the Ole Miss-Michigan State game. That game is in Atlanta. Kentucky versus Tennessee, 7:30 tonight. If you're in from Tennessee or Kentucky, welcome. As soon as the game's over, though, please leave. I don't like traffic. These two teams couldn't be any more different, so this is the contrast game. Kentucky, offense. That's what they want. And Tennessee, it's like, no, let's slow the game down. Let's play really good defense. So can't wait to watch the game for that reason. Kentucky has beaten them twice this year already. Kentucky won the first game against Tennessee 78-73. They lost the second one 75-64. Excuse me, they won the second one 75-64. Kentucky is going to score no matter how well Tennessee plays defense. That's just the reality of it. Kentucky is too good offensively. Too many shooters, too many guys who can put it on the deck and get to the bucket. Kentucky is going to score. So if Tennessee wants to win, Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler have to be great. Those two guys have to put the ball in the bucket. If you want to win the whole thing, if you want to make a Final Four, your senior point guard, Zakai Ziegler for Tennessee, that's played in these games what feels like every year of his career, and your leading scorer, Chaz Lanier, have to show up and play well. Especially when your team struggles to score the way that Tennessee's team does. So I like Kentucky tonight. They're underdogs in this game for some reason. Love them in this game tonight against Tennessee. That is your first game tonight here in Indianapolis. Now, our 9:30 game, Michigan playing Auburn. This is the Indiana Winters game. There's probably a better title than that. It was late last night. I'm sorry. Before Indiana hired Darian DeVries, Bruce Pearl and Dusty May, like those are the names at the top of the Indiana fan list in terms of who Indiana should hire to replace Mike Woodson. Okay, so this is the Indiana Winters game. All right, Michigan didn't let it happen. They forked out that money for the extension to keep Dusty May there. He has repaid them with a Big Ten tournament championship and a trip to the Sweet 16. Can he get him to the Elite Eight? We'll see. Bruce Pearl. He hadn't been to a Final Four in 6 years. Everyone's down on Auburn right now because they had that bad half against Alabama State. But they looked really good against Creighton. Their best player scores 8 points, and they win by 12. They've been the best team in the country for so much of the year. And there's a part of me that regrets not picking them to win the whole thing. I think people just got tired of them. They were the best team for most of the year. And then, they lose 3 of 4 late. It's as if people were looking for an excuse to not pick them. And then they lose 3 of 4 to 3 really good teams to close out their season. I think they beat Michigan. I actually think that they make it back to the Final Four. I think they beat Ole Miss or Michigan State, whoever they wind up playing. So can't wait to watch that game tonight. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. A lot of big bodies out there on the floor. It's going to be so much fun. And then finally, the last game of the night, Purdue is going to play against Houston. That game is set to start a little after 10 o'clock here in Indianapolis. But I think we all know that game is going to start a little bit later than 10 o'clock. This is the blast from a short past. It's kind of my theme for this game. Coach Sampson and Coach Painter obviously coached against each other for a whopping 3 games during Sampson's time in Indiana. Sampson won 2 of those 3 games. Those games happened almost 2 decades ago. But these are also 2 of the best coaches in the country. And I think this game's going to be fascinating because Houston is this tough, physical, defensive team that can get up and down and can really shoot it, but they're just like you feel them when you play them. Like they are physical. And then you have Purdue. Not super physical, not really a great defensive team, but they've got these 2 guys who can just kind of go score, not whenever they want, but they have this amazing ability to generate good shots with both Trey Coffin-Wren and Braden Smith. And if they want to win, Purdue, because I like Houston in this game, Braden Smith or Trey Coffin-Wren have to really get it going, and they need a third guy, whether it's Lawyer, Cox, whoever. Because at some point, Braden Smith or Trey Coffin-Wren are going to run out of gas. And when that happens, someone else has to step up and be awesome. It has to happen. Okay, I cannot wait for this game tonight. Purdue, they're 8.5-point underdogs. Once again, I'm not picking them. I am not. Would love to be wrong, but I don't think I will be. They simply aren't good enough on the defensive end of the floor. And I don't think they have enough offense. Braden Smith and Trey Coffin-Wren they just aren't enough for Purdue to beat Houston. Fletcher Lawyer has to show up and play well. He can't be 3 of 10 from 3 like he was against McNeese State. If he does that, then Purdue's not winning this game. It's not going to happen. Unless, someone else shows up. Maybe CJ Cox, has a little stretch like he did against Alabama. 3 straight threes. Like that would be huge. Like they need something like that. But I feel like it's so tough for that to happen for Purdue because no one else really gets shots. It's like Braden Smith, we're gonna try to get you like a tough mid-range jumper that he seems to always hit. And if we can't get that, then we'll throw it into Trey Coffin-Wren. And if that doesn't work, then we'll reverse it and hopefully Fletcher Lawyer's open. And then after that, everyone else is taking like 3 shots a game. So because there's just going to be this lack of field goal attempts for other players, it's like how big of an impact can Miles Colvin or Camden Heide or any of these other guys really have? So we'll see. Fletcher Lawyer, he has to hit shots. They need their three best players to play like their three best players. Okay, Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, Trey Coppin-Wren have to be great. Have to be. Houston is going to make things tough on Braden Smith. I know that they're not the biggest team in the world. You know, they top out at like 6'8", but their guards are big outside of LJ Cryer. Guys that are like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". They're going to be able to put size and length on Braden Smith all night. And that's what McNeese did. And Braden Smith only took 7 shots. Then again, Braden Smith didn't have to take 15 shots in order for them to beat McNeese. But what ended up happening is those extra shots that Braden Smith would normally take, they went to Fletcher Lawyer, who didn't make shots against McNeese. 4 of 12 from the floor, 3 of 10 from 3. He's going to have an opportunity to be that pressure release valve for that Purdue offense tonight. And if he's knocking in threes, and it's one of these games where Purdue hits 17 threes and Houston hits 11, then they're going to have an excellent chance to win the game. Because he's going to get open looks, because Houston is going to be, look, they're going to have their hands full dealing with Braden Smith and Trey Coppin-Wren. Those, the Fletcher Lawyer that, will have games where he's like 5 of 6 from 3. That guy, if he shows up tonight, Purdue's going to have a chance to win the game. Simple as that. They have to hit open threes tonight because they're just not going to get very many. Because Houston is a tough defensive team. That is their identity. They can guard. Okay, that's been their identity since Kelvin Sampson showed up. The difference is this team for Houston can really score the basketball. They got 4 guys averaging double figures. LJ Cryer, that's their guy. Dude can fill it up. Go back and watch that Gonzaga game. I think he scored 70. He just didn't miss. Dude shooting 43% from 3. Houston as a team shoots 40% from 3. And they are this amazing combination of offense and defense. They are the number 1 defense in the country. They're a top 10 offense. Since the start of the Big 12 tournament, Houston is holding their opponents to 39% shooting from the field. And Houston, once again, since the start of the Big 10 tournament, is shooting 40% from 3. They're making 3-point shots at a higher rate than their opponents are making shots in general. Like, that's honestly insane. It really is. Like, this is a tough game, not just for Purdue. It'd be a tough game for anybody. And when you're playing teams like this, you have to make open shots. Not just because you aren't going to get very many, but also because if you don't hit open shots, Houston will run you out of the building. Houston shot 50% from 3 against Gonzaga and 36% against SIUE. They can light it up. Once again, 40% from 3 on the year as a team. They've got 3 guards who shoot over 40% from 3. They can score. They can score. So you have to make these open shots. That way they don't run you out of the building. The good news for Purdue, because there is a little bit. Houston's not very big. And Purdue has struggled against teams that have a lot of size this year. Houston has 1 guy who's 6'11". He hadn't played all year. 0 appearances. Their second tallest player, 6'9". He's only played in 13 games this year. Everyone that plays for Houston is 6'8" and shorter. That's great news for Purdue because, you and I are both fully aware of the lack of size that Purdue has. They're going to be the bigger team, and Trey Coppin-Wren should be able to have his way, which is so important. Like, if Trey Coppin-Wren doesn't score 20 tonight, I don't think Purdue wins. He's got to score 20, and they have to hit threes. Okay? So, they're not very big, Houston, which means that Purdue should rebound well, even though Houston does an excellent job of crashing the glass. I don't know how much Caleb First is going to get to play, but when he does play, he has to rebound well. He's going to be the biggest dude on the court. He has to rebound well. Okay, like that is his role tonight. Can you grab 8 rebounds in 20 minutes? Please, that would be wonderful, Caleb. All of the role players have to find a way to be impactful in their roles. CJ Cox is going to get minutes tonight defending LJ Cryer. He has to guard, and he has to hit a couple shots. That has to happen. Purdue can't have a game where their guys not named Lawyer, Smith, and Kaufman-Wren combined for 12 points. They cannot have a game like that tonight. So CJ Cox has to guard and hit shots. Miles Colvin and Jakari Harris, they're going to come off the bench, and they have to provide energy defensively. These are two of the better athletes on this Purdue team. They have to rebound, they have to run the floor, and when they're open, they got to hit shots. Right? So, but bring that energy when they come in off the bench. And then Camden Heide, who I think should play a lot tonight. I don't know if he will, but this dude is like 6'7" and is athletic and can finish above the rim and has the ability to block shots. Okay? He is amazing. He is. Like the Camden Heide that we had last year did an excellent job of coming, into March Madness and having a real impact, just running the floor, making open threes, and playing good defense. Tonight feels like a Camden Heide game because he's 6'7", so you can get away with playing him at the power forward spot. He should be a really good rebounder. He's had games this year where he's grabbed like 8. Can he come in? Can he rebound? Can he hit open shots? And can he run the floor to get easy buckets? If Camden Heide does that, then I like Purdue's chances, okay? But the real reason, though, why I like Purdue's chances tonight, like if I was to lay it out and be like, hey, here's why Purdue's going to win. It would all just come back to Braden Smith. So much of this game tonight is going to be about the guards. It is. It's going to be about the perimeter. Okay, because Houston, they can really shoot it. Purdue, they can shoot it. Not as well as Houston, but they can shoot it. When you look at how these two teams score, especially Houston, like their top 3 leading scorers are all guards. They have a forward who averages 10 points a game, but outside of that, their forwards are out there to rebound. And that's really about it. And then you look at Purdue. Where does all of their offense come from? In some way, shape, or form, it comes from Braden Smith. It does. Okay? He's the one who figures out how to get Trey Kaufman-Wren the ball. He's the one who gets to that dribble pull-up whenever Purdue needs a bucket. He is the best guard in the country. And so much of this game is going to come back to how the guards perform. If Braden Smith comes out and he scores 20 and he has 7 assists and he only turns the ball over twice, because I am worried about him turning the ball over against this tough, physical, athletic Houston defense. But if he comes out, if he scores 20, doesn't turn it over, Purdue's going to have a great chance to win this game. I mean, this is one of the 4 best players in the country based off of National Player of the Year voting. Was the best player in the Big Ten. This guy's a first-team All-American. It's hard to bet against this guy, even though there's so many things about Houston that make me worried about Braden Smith. This dude's going to be, he's tough. He's going to play hard. And he's going to figure out ways to impact the game in a positive manner, even if he does turn the ball over 7 times. So if Purdue's going to win this game, Braden Smith's going to have to be great. Trey Kaufman-Wren's going to have to play really well. And the shooters are going to have to make shots. Can they do it? I don't think so. I like Houston by double digits, just to be abundantly clear. But to say that Purdue has no chance in this game would be simply wrong of me, because they're going to have the best player on the floor. Potentially the 2 best players on the floor. You could talk me into that. But that game tonight is at 10 o'clock. Can't wait to stay up late and watch it. Zack Gray, he's joining the show here in about 20 minutes. He's going to tell you how to bet the game. And it's really interesting. I haven't heard any SEC slander. I haven't. It's really weird. Like, they lost a couple first-round games. Everyone's like, oh, the SEC overrated. Haven't heard anyone say that here as of late. And I just want to ask a very simple question about the SEC when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you've had a nice week. Purdue playing Houston tonight. I like Houston to win by double digits. Sorry, Purdue fans. I just don't think you have enough. And I do think that most Purdue fans understand that, and I think people are starting to understand how good the SEC is. And, coming into the Sweet 16, the SEC set the record for the most teams from a specific conference with the number of Sweet 16 bids that they had. 7 SEC teams make it in the Sweet 16. And my question is just, can we admit that the SEC is good? I know they had some underdogs lose in the first round, but almost half of the Sweet 16 teams were from the SEC. Like, can we just now please admit that this was the best conference in the country and that they did indeed deserve 14 bids? Because they did. And it's not like all of the high seeds are the teams that made these runs either. Ole Miss, 6th seed, beat Iowa State, a team from the Big 12 that people just raved about. Arkansas, team that finished 8-10 in the SEC, beats the Big East regular season and tournament champ to make it to the Sweet 16. Can we just admit it? The SEC is good. Okay? When you break it down by conferences, because the Big Ten, someone said it in our YouTube chat earlier, Indie Sports Ticket, if you head over there and subscribe, and after you do that, head over to My Take Is, that's my other YouTube thing. You can subscribe to that as well. But as I was saying, the Big Ten has had an excellent postseason as well, right? So the SEC put 7 teams in to the Sweet 16. The Big Ten has 4 teams in the Sweet 16. The ACC has 1, and the Big 12 also has 4. No Big East team, by the way, made the Sweet 16 this year, which I think is really kind of funny. I also don't like the Northeast, so probably not the best person to talk about the Big East in general. So I think that the SEC and the Big Ten were the 2 best conferences this year. Obviously, the SEC being the first one. They're potentially going to get 4 teams in the Elite 8. They already have 3. Okay, between, let me go back and look at the bracket. Who won last night? I'm sorry. I'm a little tired. All right, because I had to stay up and watch my Arkansas Razorbacks choke last night. It's just brutal. A brutal experience. But Florida's in, Alabama's in. The winner of Tennessee and Kentucky will make it. If Auburn wins, then they'll have 4 teams in the Elite 8. If Auburn and Tennessee win, if Auburn and Ole Miss win, then they'll have 5. 5 of the 8 teams in the Elite 8. I'm just saying, SEC, pretty freaking good at basketball this year and undoubtedly deserved 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. That's just how, that's just the truth of it. My guy, Zack Gray, he's going to join the show coming up here in about 12 minutes. He's going to tell you how to bet the games tonight and really probably the 2 Elite 8 games that we know of so far. He's also going to razz me and give me a really hard time about the Arkansas game. So I got to be honest, not really looking forward to it. Pacers beat the Wizards last night. And originally, when I was, planning out my show yesterday, I was like, Pacers are playing the Wizards. We got Sweet 16 stuff going on. I don't think that I'm going to have to, spend a whole bunch of time, talking about the Pacers, right? Because they're going to play the Wizards. They'll win by 20, whatever. They did not win by 20. They won by 53. So I was like, you know what? I should probably talk about this a little bit, especially when you factor in that they set not 1, but 2 franchise records during the process of winning that game, scoring 162 points. That is the second most, that is a franchise record for the most points scored in Pacers history. 162. That's so many points. Like, that is an insane amount of points. And the reason why they scored that many points is very simply because they shot the crap out of the ball. I mean, just absolutely lit it up from 3. They were 27 of 47. That's insane. That's like, Alabama playing against BYU level shooting. They shot 57% from 3. Absurd. So the Pacers set a franchise record for most points scored in the game, most threes made in the game with 27. And they set the second highest mark for most assists in a game as a team. They had 48 assists. Ball popping and moving. Their worst scoring quarter, they scored 37. That was their worst quarter. They scored 45 in the first, 38 in the second, 42 in the third, and then 37 in the fourth because they had to take their foot off the gas a little bit. Just incredible. They just clobbered Washington. Tyrese Halliburton led the way with only 29. You say, well, Jonathan, 29, that's a lot of points. Not when you score 162. Just like, you know what? Someone probably got hot and had 40. No. They just had 9 guys getting to double figures. And this happens last night, and I'm kind of keeping track. And now, I have to ask this question. Like, where's this against all the other bad teams? Seriously. Then again, you're obviously not going to score 162 points, but they came out. They were clearly very focused. They clearly took care of business in, the best way possible, winning by 53 on the second night of a back-to-back, and they needed the win because, they're 2 games up on the Pistons now, and they're 2.5 games up on the Bucks for that 4th seed. And it's just where's this been at? Why aren't you playing with this level of intensity and focus against the Brooklyn Nets at home? Why aren't you playing with that level of intensity and focus when the super injured Dallas Mavericks roll into town? Where has this effort and intensity and, defensive prowess, because I thought that they played good defense last night too. I mean, they only gave up 109 points. Where has this been at against some of the other really bad teams in the NBA? It is incredibly not frustrating because they won. Okay, they won, but it's where's this been at against everyone else that's not very good? I don't know, but hopefully they continue to play like that. Hopefully they shoot 57% from 3 for the rest of the year. If they do that, I think they're going to have a great chance to continue to win games going forward. Speaking of games and going forward, the Sweet 16 continues tonight. We had some good games last night, some bad games. Arizona and Duke was fun. Arkansas, Texas Tech was crazy. I wouldn't call it fun, but it was crazy. Maryland crushed by Florida. BYU, for some reason, went under screens against Alabama. That doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't have bet them if I knew that they're going to go under all of these screens. And then tonight, games continue. Ole Miss, Michigan State. I think that game's going to be a blast. 2 really good defensive teams, 2 teams that are very well coached. I like Ole Miss to win that one just because they shoot the ball better than Michigan State does. And it's really that simple for me. At this point, Kentucky plays Tennessee. Kentucky's already beaten Tennessee twice this year. Despite that, Tennessee still a 4.5-point favorite. Hard not to take Kentucky in that spot. Michigan plays Auburn. This is the first of 2 late games. And I like Auburn. I think they are very undervalued right now. They played 1 bad half against Alabama State, and they've looked really good since then. So I like Auburn to beat Michigan. And then finally, the last game of the night here in Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium. Purdue plays Houston. People overreacting about the home court advantage thing. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. Okay, I promise, Houston fans, you're going to be fine. I promise, okay? Yeah, can't wait for those games. I hate that they're playing them in Lucas Oil. I know that's the norm, but I just feel like a game in Gainbridge Fieldhouse would be a much better product. I think it would look better. I think that teams would shoot the ball better because shooting in a dome is always weird. Very intrigued to see how that impacts both of those teams tonight. Can't wait, though. Great slate of games. Zack Gray, he's joining the show here in about 5 minutes or so to help you bet the games. Zack Gray, professional sports gambler, Zack Gray, professional sports gambler, joins the show to give out some winning bets, and we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show. It's Friday. It's 11:40, which means Zack Gray joins the show. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Beautiful Thursday. No, I'm just kidding. Happy Friday, Jay Smith.
I guess. It is just brutal, man. Before you give bets and we talk about everything that happened last night, I did want to tell you this because I do think that you'll find it funny. So this morning, I'm getting ready to leave, and Amelia's on spring break, and so I walk in to tell her that I'm leaving, and she looks at me and she goes, "Jonathan, did you like fall asleep on the couch last night?" I was like, "No. Why?" She's like, "Well, I heard you come to bed at 4 a.m. this morning," and I was like, "Yeah, the Arkansas game just really tore me up a little bit, you know."
That's tough. I actually fell asleep too. I knew they weren't going to cover, so I hit the hay as well. But I'm glad they lost still. Like, at least that happened.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, brutal. Anyway, bets for tonight. I have one I've got two actually that I really like, but I do want to hear from the professional first. You can check out Zack Gray's stuff at ZG the Grapevine on Twitter. If you check out the Patreon linked in his bio, he sells tools to help you make better bets. So Zach, what do you have going on tonight?
So Jay Smith, if you'll allow me, I'll give you one of my college basketball bets tonight, and I'd like to give your audience and you my full baseball card for today as well.
Go ahead.
All right, so we'll start here in Major League Baseball. Baseball is back. I'm going to rattle these off really quickly so we can move into the college basketball stuff. I have the Mets, the Rangers, the Orioles, and Colorado plus 1.5 on the run line.
Okay.
I'll say that one more time for the people at home. Mets, Rangers, Orioles, Rockies on the run line. You can see my full projections. You can see all of the value that I have on my projections on Twitter or X, the Everything app. But I don't know if you've checked it out, Jay Smith, but you actually, when you look at my projections, it actually gives a implied money line based on my projections, compares it to the money line that are on the books, and then gives a percent value analysis. So pretty in-depth stuff. You guys kind of get to see behind the scenes there right now for that first week of the season, it being free. You guys get to check that out. So follow my Twitter and you guys can see the projections for the first 7 days. We did well yesterday, 3-2, hit a plus 150 underdog with the Guardians yesterday. So excited that baseball's back.
Oh, yeah.
So moving to college basketball, we're going to Indianapolis, the place where you currently reside, Jay Smith. And we're going to take the over 143.5 Kentucky, Tennessee. The last two times Kentucky has beaten Tennessee, Tennessee has shot the ball horrendously. I don't see that happening again. I see this game being in the 70s, maybe even the 80s. Give me the over 143.5.
Okay. I like it. Especially since, in that first meeting, Tennessee lost 78-73. So, we've seen it get over this number before, even this season.
Right. And the thing is that both teams are 6-4 in their last 10 on the overs. Kentucky's 19-14 overall, and 7-4 is the underdog. They go over. They're 7-4 when they're the underdog. They go over. So exciting stuff. I can't wait to bounce back after yesterday and kind of like a miraculous loss yesterday with the way things played out in the BYU game.
Yeah, that game. Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. He liked BYU plus 5.5 yesterday. I did too. And then, Zach, we're like 5 minutes into the game, and I know you watched. And I'm trying so hard not to jump off my couch and yell, "Why is BYU going under all these ball screens?" It drove me crazy.
Right.
I
think,
yeah.
Isn't the idea there that they aren't able to keep up with them off the dribble? So you have to give them some space. It didn't work, but maybe that's the idea.
I was talking to a guy earlier who watched a lot a lot of Big 12 this year. He said BYU did that to everyone because their thought process was just, we're going to make more threes than you anyway. So if we go under and we give up less layups, like, we should be fine. And that works against, like, everyone in the country not named Alabama. So, like,
Yeah, and that's on me, right? My model should have predicted that they're going to break the 3-point record in the tournament. That's just me having bad data.
yeah, man, how'd you not see this coming? You know what's crazy about that? The Pacers yesterday, they set a franchise record for most threes hit in a game. They only hit 2 more than Alabama did.
It was ridiculous, and there were definitely open shots. But there was a long stretch where they were just pulling from way deep with people in their face and knocking down every single one of them.
Yeah. It's just
they shot 66 total shots, and 51 of them were threes, and they made 50% of them.
It's just ridiculous. And this is why gambling's hard. Because stuff like this happens. And it's why March Madness is crazy, because stuff like this happens.
Now, we don't think that obviously this is not a repeatable performance. I think Alabama's in trouble tomorrow.
Yeah, they should have saved some of those threes for tomorrow.
I mean, I don't know if this is me trying to cope, but I don't think Duke is going to allow them to be as 3-point volume oriented as they were. I think Duke will get them out of that very quickly. They'll put a little more pressure on them defensively. They'll put a little more pressure on them from scoring the basketball. I don't expect Duke to go, to be deep into the second half, shooting 12% from 3 like BYU was. I expect them to control the rebounds a little more. Alabama had some really, really timely offensive rebounds when the game was still in the balance yesterday. I don't expect that. Duke is this is a better game. It's going to be a better game than I originally thought. But I think Alabama's in trouble. I think the idea that if they're going to live and die by the 3, eventually they're going to die. And I think Alabama was just the more talented team yesterday. I thought they were the more sloppy team, but it didn't matter. But I think Duke controls the glass, controls the tempo, and gets it done. I don't know if you feel that way or if I'm just
Oh, no, I'm with you.
Look, Duke, I'm upset with the way things went yesterday.
Duke's the best team. Like, there's no doubt about it. Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. Check him out on Twitter at ZG the Grapevine. If you click the link in his bio, you can check out the tools that he sells to help you make better bets. Also, full credit to Zach. He was on Duke being the best team in the country before anyone else. And so, yeah, like, they're just so much more athletic than BYU. Like, they're going to be able to put more pressure on the ball. I heard a really interesting stat earlier today. So I guess when you look at, like, pace of play, Duke is playing slower than normal. And it's not because they don't score quickly. It's because they lead the country in length of defensive possessions. And so, like, you just can't get open because they're all 6'6" and taller. They're all incredibly long and athletic, and it's just so hard to create open shots. I think Alabama's going to struggle tomorrow.
Does Duke giving up 93 points to Arizona bother you or concern you at all?
Alabama doesn't have Caleb Love, so not really.
Yeah, Caleb Love against Duke is a different breed, man.
Dude, he's so good. He's just like, I don't know what it is, man. He's just, when he plays Duke, he just kind of finds another level. I am curious your thoughts on tonight's game, though, between Purdue and Houston. I think Houston rolls. I just don't think Purdue has enough. I think that seems to be the consensus opinion, but what are kind of your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the game is relatively close for most of the game. I don't have a play on this, but if I had to say, I would say that Houston maybe pulls away late to cover. But I expect Purdue to hang in there. I've said this all season. I have real reservations with Purdue when they face athletic guards. I feel like Braden Smith gets neutralized when he has bigger, more athletic guards on him. I feel like he does things well. All things considered with a general, team that he's playing where there's, they're good, but they're not Houston level good. And I think he struggles kind of getting to that next level when there is a defense like Houston. I don't think he elevates his team. I don't think he elevates his game to kind of to counteract that. So I think there'd be a problem there. I think that Houston is going to be in the Final Four for sure. But it's going to be one of those things where if Braden Smith comes out and he is swallowed up, he can't do much. You obviously can't rely on Fletcher Lawyer. He is a turnstile and can make a shot every now and then, I guess. But yeah, I agree with you. Houston's gonna win this game, but it's gonna be closer for a while. And I think people are gonna be like, oh, this Purdue team, and then the floodgates open. Evan Miyakawa from the college basketball Twitter, you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen his stuff? He has a thing called Kill Shot, and Houston is one of the best at that every year. I expect one of those flurries towards the end of the game to pull away.
Yeah, they're so much better offensively this year than they have been in years past. And I want to ask you about Auburn as well, because I think people are wrong about Auburn. I think people saw them struggle in the first half against Alabama State, and they knew that coming into the tournament that they lost 3 of their last 4. And now everyone seems to be off Auburn, even though they just beat a good Creighton team by 12, where their best player, Broome only scored 8 points, and Chad Baker-Mazara, got hurt halfway through, and they still beat a really good Creighton team by 12 points. I like them tonight a lot as well. What do you think of Auburn and just the idea that people have kind of moved on from them?
Yeah, I actually really like Auburn as well. I might as well give it out. I actually, when the lines first released, I gave out Auburn -7.5. I think it's 8.5 now.
It is.
But yeah, I just think Auburn's gonna kind of get people's attention again. For a team that everyone is kind of like they're not playing very well, they're not doing well, whatever the case may be, they're not the same Auburn team. They seem to be doing just fine. Like you said, they just beat a great Creighton team by 12 points. They're in the Sweet 16. They're favored by 8.5. What else could you ask for?
Seriously. I mean, like they're really, really good. And so I'm so excited for the games tonight. Which one, without giving out a play, like which game are you most looking forward to tonight?
Ooh, that's a tough one, Jay Smith. If I had to pick one, why do I want to say Michigan State, Ole Miss?
That's mine.
I think Ole Miss might make a run here.
I do too. They're really they defend at a high level because it's Chris Beard, and Chris Beard teams always defend well, and they can score. I think this is the best offensive team Chris Beard has had ever.
If they shoot the way they shot last game, no one's touching them except Alabama, Duke, Houston. I don't think Michigan State is going to be able to keep up if they're making shots like that. But then again, I feel like everyone just keeps sleeping on Michigan State, and then they just win. So I think that might be the most intriguing game. I still think UK Tennessee might be the most exciting game. I think that's where I'll land. Intriguing Ole Miss Michigan State, exciting UK Tennessee.
That's totally fair. I like that. I can't wait. And Zach, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Okay. So we've got another YouTube channel, which just changed the name, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. My take is, and tonight after the games, would you want to do an Elite 8 preview?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go. Big time. So you can look forward to that tonight. Zach, I got to run. You're the man. One more time, what are the plays for tonight?
Yeah, we got UK Tennessee over 143.5 in college basketball. Moving to the diamond, we have the Mets +110, the Rangers +104, Baltimore +115, and Colorado Rockies +1.5 on the run line.
All right, dude, you are the man. I will talk to you tonight.
Yep. Thanks, Jay Smith.
You got it. That is Zack Gray. You can check him out on Twitter @ZG The Grapevine. If you go to the link in his bio, it'll take you to his Patreon where he sells tools to help you make better bets. He had a rough day yesterday. It's all right. It happens sometimes. You're not going to be, you're not going to bet 1,000 when it comes to sports gambling. So, but he does a really, really good job. I think he's at I think he's gotten like 62% of his bets right this year, which is incredible. 58%. That's where the pros look to be. And he's obviously a little bit above that. Big games tonight. I like Ole Miss over Michigan State, Kentucky to beat Tennessee, Auburn to beat Michigan, and I like Houston over Purdue. Hope I'm wrong on that Purdue game because I like Braden Smith, Coach Painter, great coach, one of the best in the country, just continues to find a way to win games. I will be back on Monday, and I'll be back Monday where we will talk about the Final Four and these Elite Eight games. I can't wait. The Dan Dockett Show is going to be awesome today. Aaron Torres at 1 o'clock. He'll have many, many thoughts on everything going on in the world of college basketball. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day to tune in. If you want more from me, check out my YouTube channel. My take is Zack Gray, and I will have a nice little Elite Eight preview coming out later tonight. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way here in about 5 minutes.